Byron, back to you. It's so interesting.
Oh, good.
No. So interesting that the theme, stay hungry, stay foolish. You're not a stay foolish part of that, but you are stay hungry. You
don't think I'm foolish?
You're not foolish.
You don't know me very well.
All right. Whoever knows Byron maybe thinks him as foolish. You're not foolish at all.
That's that guy right
They
there.
know
He'll
you.
tell you.
The stay hungry part. You're a successful entrepreneur. You have some fame by being on Shark Tank, here in Gainesville with a fabulous business. How do you stay hungry?
I have no idea. I think it might just be in you, in a person, because when I'm up at 1 or 2 in the morning still working on something to do with the company, and I'm just going and going and going, and then I wake up and I open my eyes in the morning and I have this feeling, and I'm telling you, it's real. I open my eyes, and it's almost miserable, by the way. I open my eyes and I feel relaxed, and I feel, if you ever had that feeling when you wake up on a Sunday morning and you think, gosh, I could just lay in bed all day. I have that feeling for as long as it takes my brain to turn on. And that's miserable in a way, because as soon as my brain turns on, which is about 5 seconds later, that feeling's gone. And I'm thinking about all the things I do, and I make a list in my head, and since I don't have anything to write with, I stack things, and that's how I remember things. I stack them in my head, and I make these ridiculous stacks. There might be an oil change in there might be a haircut in there, and I stack these things up in my head, and then I eventually might get them to paper, and then I get them done, and I have lists and lists and lists that I keep doing, and that's the definition of insanity, by the way. But at the same time, it's how I get things done. I have no idea how these other people get things done, and I feel like they probably get a lot more done than I do in different ways, but that's my method, and I think it's important that everybody find their method and learn to use whatever insanity that you were born with to make something out of it.
Rich, you learned how to channel insanity by participating in Ironman competitions. That is a remarkable accomplishment. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, Rich completed 2 Ironman competitions in the past 3 months.
Wow.
Including the World Championships in Hawaii, the big one, the big kahuna. So remarkable. But out of your channeling your energies, I do know you to understand this notion of critical paths and why critical paths to eliminate bottlenecks are so important for the entrepreneur or the seasoned business person. Can you explain, please?
Yep. By the way, the World Championships was awesome. I really realized how slow I am. I normally finish in like top 3 to 5% of the entire race, and I was in the bottom 75% of this race. So there's some really fast.
Yeah, but
Tell them about the women.
Oh, the women. Oh, yeah. And I'd never been passed on a bike by a woman before. Got passed by a lot of them in Hawaii.
girl power.
Oh, and for Girl Power, this year was the first time in Ironman history that a woman's run time, her marathon time, so for these who don't know what an Ironman is, it's a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and then a marathon. And her run time for the marathon, 2 hours and 50 minutes, was the fastest in the race. She beat every man. So there's some girl power for you. Yeah, so you have to channel, you have to find these paths that make you successful. And what ends up happening is you set this huge goal of where I want to attain and where I want to go, but what you have to do then is you look back and see what are the things that are going to be my bottlenecks that are going to stop me to get to where I need to go. And so we set company goals like this all the time, and from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and if you haven't read it, pick it up. Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, talks about big, hairy, audacious goals, and those are BHAGs. And you set this huge goal of where you want to attain, but you have to find out the bottlenecks in your company and or personally that are going to stop you from accomplishing that goal. One example we set a goal for our company to go from 72,000 customers to 200,000 customers in 3 years. Would you say that's a BHAG goal? Well, because we had only grown by, 72,000 customers over 18 years. That's where we were. In the next 3 years, we want to get to that count. So we looked at our contracts, and our contracts are taking up to 4 days to get approved. That was a bottleneck. Now it takes, if it's longer than an hour, it's an anomaly.
Trevor, when Rich speaks of bottlenecks, and in order to eliminate a bottleneck, reduce it, you need resources. Your project, Spin Chill, which is now a legitimate company, doesn't have many resources. How did you identify resources? How did you pursue them? And then once you found them, how did you use them?
Absolutely. Well, it started through the Gainesville community. The Gainesville community has an immense amount of resources, and everybody's willing to help out. Whether for us, it was a 3D printer. We had access to a 3D printer through the Hacker House program, and we were able to rapid prototype, print out a new prototype in 20 minutes, which is huge in anywhere in the hardware industry. And that was just something that we were given and utilized, and mentorship. I mean, for instance, I talk to Whit on a daily basis probably about different business practices. My partner and I, Ty, are both mechanical engineering backgrounds, so the resources are out there to find them or to use them. I'd say just utilize them. They're there. Go figure out who it is. There's a bunch of guys here that I'm sure are very willing, and lady, very willing to help, and there's a ton of that within the community.
I don't think anyone in Gainesville ever turned you down, did they?
No, absolutely not. It actually turned into, each connection ended up turning into another 5 connections and meetings of people from out of town.
Valerie, the notion of success versus happiness, and there's a quote that we're using from Dale Carnegie: success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. You're just driven, and sometimes life gets out of balance in pursuit of happiness. How do you rein it back in so that you're finding some equilibrium?
For me, I would say that I'm definitely driven by success, and from that, happiness, as the quote says. For me, I reach out to our Team Tone Right. They're there to offer support along the way, and to help take on some of the responsibilities or tasks that need to be done in order to get to our goal. Also, I'd like to say, as well as Trevor, the community here in Gainesville is extremely supportive, and they're there to help you along the way and offer support. And from that, you're able to bounce ideas and really also learn about ways that you can incorporate work-life balance so that you don't get burnt out along the way with the pursuit to success.
Both Trevor and Valerie have spoken about the community, and this is a real important part about us living here and succeeding here. Aidan, another theme that we're using in MYOB is surrounding yourself. And the quote that comes from W. Clement Stone is, "Tell everyone what you want to do, and someone will want to help you do it." I've watched you do that, not in a not in a greedy way, but in a very accommodating way. You've surrounded yourself by remarkable people. You're a remarkable person yourself. What's the dynamics once you get that ecosystem around you built?
Well, it's on the micro scale, talking about our team in particular, we started out with just my roommate and I, 2 people, and now we're up to a group of 9 full-time. And we've attracted talent from the University of Florida, people who also bought into our vision. And so that ties into Gainesville and the resources here. There's a lot of human capital, intellectual capital present in Gainesville. There's people who have experience that they could share. There's people who have skills. And like that quote said, if you broadcast your message, you talk about what you want to do and you're very clear and driven about it, people are attracted to that. People are attracted to dynamic people. People are attracted to success. And if you're advocating a message, people will buy into that. And so that's worked very well for us here at Feather. And on the macro scale, the community as a whole, Trevor touched on this, but there's so much you can tap into here from the University of Florida, from other experienced entrepreneurs running their own companies, and surrounding yourself with peers or people who are more experienced to you, even better, mentors, is really the only way that you can learn and improve and succeed.
This willingness to help touches on another element of tonight's discussion, Rich, and this is so, it makes me laugh to even think that I'm going to use this word with you, but failure. I've known you for close to 4 years. I've never associated you with failure, and yet, like all entrepreneurs, you've experienced failure. Can't that be avoided?
Oh, no. No. Failure is great. And I'll tell you why it's great.
Don't fail your tests, kids.
I've done many of those. What failure, you don't realize until that you've succeeded or accomplished something, or that something worked unless it fails. When it fails, that's when you know it didn't work. And then you figure out why it didn't work, and then you move forward. When my business partner and I started our company, to next year will be 20 years, we wrote a business plan and shopped it around. We got over a dozen no's. That's a failure each time someone tells you no. And instead of putting our head down and walking out of the room and saying, well, what are we going to do now? The question to the people that were saying no, it said, well, what would you have done different to this business plan? What would you have liked to have seen? What could we have done different that you would have liked to have seen? And then we took that information, processed it, figured out if we wanted to make changes, and in those changes we wanted to make, we changed our business plan and went to the next one. No. Okay. Why? What didn't you like? What would you have liked better? What, if we would have done something different, what would made you say yes? And then process, then you finally get a yes. Oh, I like no's.
Which is also how you get a loan, by the way.
Bankers out there in the audience, please say yes more often.
Why didn't you give it to me again? Oh.
Trevor, when it comes to failure, for the activities you're involved in, there's a very small degree of which, I mean, Spin Chill is just out of its infancy, just born, really. So you can't afford a monumental failure. How do you know when to cut your losses?
That's a good question. I'll be able to tell you when I get there. Yeah, I don't know. That's something that we're figuring out on a day-to-day basis, both Ty and I mean, figuring out the growing pains of building a company. So a monumental failure, it'll happen, I'm sure, somewhere along the line. When it does happen, move on and continue pushing to the next thing is what my game plan is.
So Valerie, when Trevor says that you just sort of keep moving forward, but I know you to be a very visionary person. Don't you have it all mapped out?
Can you repeat that last part? I didn't hear you.
I mean, don't you have the next sales quarter mapped out and the next product line mapped out and where you're going?
Visionary, I am extremely visionary, and I can see where we're going, and that path, like, we're definitely going in that direction. I have not experienced failure with the company, really, or with sales.
Nonsense.
No. Learning experiences, yes. Challenges, yes. Not failure.
Ah, so we all have different definitions of failure.
Just change your perception.
Okay, so we have different definitions.